So welcome everybody to this last session of this day. My name is Jens Martignoni. I'm the moderator in this place. I come from Switzerland and I'm a researcher in complementary currencies and also presenting papers and doing stuff in the next days. Well, this evening we have here some practical practitioners' experiences. That's nice to have. In fact, we have three, but the third party still didn't arrive from Brazil, or no? Maybe they will arrive at the end. In general, a slot has 4 papers, but with 3 we can either close earlier if desired, or we have more time to discuss at the end, maybe for all papers or for different subjects if liked. Okay, then I think we have, just to present, we have these 3 papers. One is from Sander van Parijs and Hugo Wanner, the role of the entrepreneurial state in fostering community currencies, reflections from 2 Belgian cases. Then we have, as a second, the wrap around service delivery, a grassroots Australian response to financial exclusion. This is from Jenny Beetson-Mortimer, which is here, who is here, Tracy Christiansen and Ingrid Delassi, all left in Australia. No, thanks for coming. And the last paper would be, we hope to receive these authors too, Marcelo de Oliveira Lima and Lerson Jorge Badotti, a pay plug alternative local currency pilot project of implantation in a company from Campo Marçal City, Paraná. So this would be the third paper. Okay, I think I will not really tell more, but hand over the floor to the first project from Belgium. Thank you very much, and I hope the computer does work. This micro does work too. All right, perfect.
Okay, hello everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Sander van Parijs. I'm actually quite new in the field of community currencies. I just started with my co-author Hugo Wanner a new organization which is focusing on the promotion, the development, and on the advice towards community currencies in Belgium, specifically in the northern part of Belgium, Flanders and Brussels. My background is on political science. I'm a PhD in political science, and so that's also kind of the inspirational source of me as a political scientist being confronted with these local cases in Belgium on community currencies. This paper is a working paper, so we will have some conclusions, but these conclusions are up to debate and might change in the future if we go on with our analysis. So we have to be cautious about that. So our paper is about the role of the entrepreneurial state in fostering community currencies. The entrepreneurial state refers to a notion of a shift in how politics has been practiced in recent years in Western Europe in particular, where we see a shift from government to governance, where governments are more and more involving different stakeholders into their policies and into production of their policies, and where we see sort of what sometimes is called the rise of the co-productive state. To outline the research interest of our paper and our research agenda we have together, Hugo and I want to come up with a few reflections. First thing is when we witness our cases in Belgium, we see that there is a particular role for the public actors in these cases, in supporting community currencies, but also in financial backing community currencies, in initiating them, and in even co-directing them. And so this reality is sort of in conflict, let's say, with the bottom-up reputation of community currencies. And that's something that intrigues us. On the other hand, we saw in the International journal a call made by North, in particular to his research on transition currencies in the UK, that he said, we as a community of community currency practitioners, we should engage more with the local power structures. We should be aware of the role they can play in making community currencies a success. Now, this debate is not the scope of our paper, but it's an inspiration of our paper. What intrigues us about this call made by North is that he asks to engage with power structures, but then the question can be immediately risen, okay, to engage with power structures, what does that mean in practice? And so what we do in this working paper is we explore a conceptual framework that we think might be very helpful for both practitioners as academics to start to reflect upon their own cases. Before I introduce this framework, I want to first say a little word about our premises. We think that the whole discussion between bottom-up versus top-down is not really reflecting the reality we see in our cases in Belgium. It's rather about co-production. It's about both government, so top-down government, as bottom-up initiators trying to find a solution together, making a project together. And so this dichotomy between bottom-up versus top-down is making us maybe a blind spot, creating a blind spot for us, which should not be there. It's not what the discussion maybe should be about. A second premise that we have is that we think that change makers, change agents, or policy entrepreneurs, a term I would introduce further with the conceptual framework, that they make it happen. They bring solution, problem, and politics together in a certain project. And so what we were interested in when we were looking for a conceptual framework, that is in a framework that helps us to understand and to see how this interaction between people and their ideas works into practice. A third and last premises that we have is about actors. We think that they interpret the world through the use of conceptual lenses. So what they see is basically something they see through the glasses that they put on, the theoretical or conceptual glasses they put on, that they see some things in reality and other things are not in the focus of these glasses they are wearing, so they are not aware of it. This point will be more clear when I talk about conceptual framework. So this is the conceptual framework. In our working paper, we introduced 3 frameworks, but I will just stick to this one because this is the one we think that might be helpful for both practitioners as academics, people from academia, and that's the multiple streams model. And basically what the multiple stream model does in its analysis is making a distinction between problems, policies, and politics. And the problem stream considers all the conditions that can be interpreted by actors in the field as problems or challenges or issues that need to be tackled. For instance, think about global warming, might be there already for a long time, but now it's very prominent in this problem sphere at some societies. The policy stream, that's also sometimes called the solution stream, and that's the space where ideas are being developed. One can imagine a pool of ideas where specialists are like trying to tease and to sort out different solutions and say like, this is interesting, we should dig into it, we should look upon like we should explore it further and so on. The last stream is the political stream, and that's the analytical stream where we look on political events. And then you can think about elections, the annual budget control, change in the mood of the country, campaigns by interest groups, and so on. And so if we have these streams in our analysis, we can see that at some points, apparently these streams come together. And that's what we call a window of opportunity. And in this window of opportunity, a new decision can be made. And it's the change agents who actually try to actively and proactively seek to make this window of opportunity by initiating new events, by combining ideas, by coupling solutions to certain problems, by blending political issues together to sort of force a decision to be made. And what we think is really interesting about this model is that it invites us to actually make a twist in our mind, because in traditional public administration literature you will see like, okay, how does political decision making happens? Well, first there is a problem, then we figure out a solution, and then we implement it. Actually, what this model says is, it might be that it happens like this, but often there are plenty of solutions, and people are convinced about certain ideas. They call it prototype solutions. For instance, a community currency idea might be seen maybe as a prototype solution, where you start looking through this concept to the world and see different problems that might be interesting to tackle with this community currency. So it's sort of the other way around. If we look at our cases, we think with this multiple streams model, we actually we start to understand better what happened during the narrative of the decision-making process. The first case is the toricus, which I'm not going to talk a lot about it in general terms, because Hugo, my colleague, is tomorrow giving a presentation on the toricus. So what you need to know for now is that it's a local currency in Ghent, in a deprived neighborhood, which it's basically a citizen reward scheme that is tackling social, like is looking for ways to achieve, to improve social capital in the neighborhood, to let people care about the environment, and to promote active citizenship. And if we look at how this happened, how did we create this community currency called the toricus, then we see at the very beginning in this solution stream there was a guy called Lyotard, and this guy had an idea, a fantastic idea. He thought about community currencies as a solution to many issues. He started to lobby about this idea and start to speak with the different people in the field of politics and in society. And he met at a certain point the Belgian minister. And the Belgian minister was intrigued by this idea and said, okay, this is interesting. And at the same time, we see in the political stream that the elections are nearby, and she was also looking for political exposure. And she thought, okay, this might be an interesting idea to sort of make a statement towards the election period. So what happened is that we had sort of a partial decision. This is not really a window of opportunity, what we would call, like not a full window of opportunity, but we see that solution and politics come together. But there is no problem yet. So they will start talking about the solution in the phase of the elections, but they don't have a problem yet to be settled. So how the case evolves further is that we see that they start, like you can say, pulling the problem stream towards this whole solution and political stream, and they say, well, it's about wicked urban issues. Okay, so it's about wicked urban issues. Maybe we should talk with the different mayors in the country. So they start to do their tour in Flanders, talking with different mayors, and finally, to make the story short, they find the mayor of Ghent interested to experiment with this social currency or community currency in his city. At that moment, the decision is made to make a community currency in Ghent. Still, there is not yet a local problem linked to the community currency. So now the whole process starts on the local political in the local political field. So they say, well, it's about citizen involvement. Okay, so what they do is in the city of Ghent, they start to have public hearings on the city level to start to select topics and cases where they can apply their community currency solution to. At the same time, there is also an within the community, within the public administration, there is also a dialogue going on with both the political leaders and leaders within the civic administration about what are things that we want to solve in our city, but we are not capable somehow, despite several investments, to realize our dreams. And so they come up with a school and a neighborhood. And the neighborhood, that's the neighborhood where the torques in the end were created. So informed by these public hearings, but also by hearings within the inner administration, they decided to have the torques. If we continue the story, I will go over a lot of steps, so I will skip a lot of steps. But one thing is particularly interesting as well on the micro level. You see again the same thing happening of actors coupling new dossiers, what they call, new issues towards on this project of the local community currency. So what we see is that there is this idea or solution to have a citizen garden initiative in the neighborhood, while at the same time there is lobbying from the civic organizations in this neighborhood, and at the same time they are looking for things to apply their currency on. So you get this whole blend of complex different actors, different agendas coming together at this point that they decide to say, okay, let's reward the volunteers in this garden project with this local currency. And actually this, you can say, accidental issue or coming together of ideas, people and agendas made the torques a success, because half of the torques are actually spent within the frame of this urban gardening initiative. Nowadays they face a new problem where they didn't find a policy window yet, and that is that local businesses that want to that when they receive torques, they can go to the city government and exchange these torques for euros. They see this as evident, since it has been always the case since the torques were established. But that makes the torques highly dependent on the local political stream. If there is new elections and a new government that is not interested in the torques, they are very dependent on the decision of the new government. So what they try to do is they try to convince the local shopkeepers to not take it for granted that the torques can be exchanged for euros at the city administration, and to reinvest the torques in the neighborhood. But at the moment, the shopkeepers don't see the problem. So what needs to be done now is to find a new frame to broaden the horizon, so that the local entrepreneurs see a problem that needs to be solved, and to make a shift in the whole design of the currency. So they are not there yet. I'll take a look at the time. What time is it? Okay, so what I will do is I will skip the second case, which is also a very interesting case, but in the room we also have Wim, who is at this moment the coordinator of the currency scheme. So if you have any questions about this currency, go and find him and talk with him. And in our paper you also find our preliminary analysis on the case. So that's this sketch. So to round up, to go to the conclusion, there are 3 or 4 elements even that we think are really important to take in consideration when you are designing or starting with a community currency project. The first thing is be aware of the role of ideas. And as we argue in the paper, we say that community currencies are this conceptual lens through which we frame societal challenges in new ways. So they are a solution that is looking for problems. And so it's not it's not the other way around, that we first need to find problems and then have solution and implementation. We need to be aware that there's these different streams, and reality is messy, where we need to find our way and to be aware that we can actually frame this thing. That is when we look at the role of timing as well, when we start to match our prototype solutions to new issues, to new agendas, and when we seek the political momentum, when there is space within the local government, for instance, to actually take some action. To be aware of the role of people and our own role, that is, make the change happen by coupling these streams together. Be aware of politics, be aware of problems that are rising within the problem stream in society, where you might be not necessarily which you would not necessarily come across if you not start to speak with other people and to start to sort out, okay, what is living, what problems are living here. Lastly, you also have the role of power, and that is not particularly tackled by the framework we have today, we presented today. So, but it is an important issue. So that's something we will work on in next paper maybe, or in an adaptation of our current working paper. But that's not part of the multiple streams model. But we need to be aware that, of course, some people have more room to maneuver in these activities that they set up as change agents. Lastly, these are some recommendations. Actually, I talked about them indirectly already. So take part in the policy game as a community currency practitioner. Play your role in the policy stream like Litag has done. He's introducing new ideas, giving sensitizing examples, talking with people from the political stream to convince them that this might be a solution that they should keep in the back of their head when they witness a problem that they cannot solve right away. Drag and drop your narrative about this prototype solution and the problems it might tackle in different circles, in different arenas. Talk also with people you are not used to speak with. Try to make a shared discourse with your community. Try to let other people actually steal your ideas, because they become ambassadors of your ideas. Wave your own web network, and frame the prototype solution, which is, according to us, a community currency, to your context. So study the reports the local government has written. Maybe there are some problems they are wanting to tackle that you don't necessarily want to tackle, but you agree that they are common problems. Well, if you start to couple your agenda to their agenda, maybe you find a win-win situation. So that was it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sander. I found it very interesting, because this is one of the main topics we have here, that there are so many solutions around, and sometimes we forget about the problems and the people who don't necessarily wait for complementary currency solutions for whatever. Well, are there any questions? I think we should talk into the micro because of the videos, not because of we don't hear each other.
Hello, my name is Susanna Martin. Thank you for the presentation. It was very, very interesting. It addresses a problem we've had and this was a problem in dealing with the council in Barcelona,
Mhm.
because they actually wanted to know what problems we wanted to solve with the currency.
Mhm.
And actually, my first question to you is this idea of shifting to another way of framing the question, like going to this prototyping and this new. This is like a wish or something that you really did, or because in the end, what I see is that you did exactly what we end up doing, which is taking the reports in the council and also following all the the council in Barcelona now is in the government. There's a citizen platform. So we were from the beginning in the economic discussion group, and we were from the beginning, aware of all the problems in the city, and we had to bear in mind all these kind of things that were problems in the city, to be able to address the problem correctly. So at the end, I don't know if it's really a contradiction or the question is, did you end up doing what they need actually, which is addressing the problems?
Hugo wanted to answer, I saw.
I think for the two propositions, we ended up solving some of the problems in the Ghent situation, because the currency system has been implemented. It's running for several years now, and it has been a solution for some of the problems that were raised beforehand, and we showed afterwards that it's also a solution for problems that were not intended to be solved for it. So that's I'm gonna speak about it tomorrow, a few words. And the second situation was it was also not another picture, but there the problem and the problem solver were the same person. So it was a person in an organization who read some of the ideas of Bernard Lietaer and said, this can be interesting to solve some of our problems. It was the waste collector, and said, I can use this thing, some loyalty scheme to reward people with showing good behavior. And because he was the director of the system, he was at the exact place to start up the scheme. But because the waste collector is not an organization to do that type of currency schemes, so he had to really manage and to find coalitions in his board and so on to start up the scheme. And in the long run, and that's where my colleague Wim can say more about, is that because the waste collector has not currency schemes as its central item, it was now taken out of this organization and is a separate organization that still has to do this thing to do better things with the waste problem, but also is being used now for other problems.
You want to say something, Wim?
Well, I'll do that within 2 years on the next Congress.
On the next Congress. So we will have really very, very serious results then. Okay. Okay, then are there other questions? Or yes?
I was just thinking about at the beginning how you say can you involve power structure to make a complementary currency successful, and then you said that one of the problem was that it was too dependent on politics, right? At some point, so then it's like, I don't know. My question is like, is this desirable in the end? Do we want complementary currencies to be like? Do we want to benefit from like the political boost that those power structure can give like complementary currencies, or once it's successful, do we want to like move away from them because it becomes a liability? Like, I don't know, I'm just think it's interesting, like what he said, relationship we should have with public sectors. I don't know.
Thank you for your question. I think it's really relevant and interesting. I think in presenting the framework, what we say is not necessarily that you have to involve local or national politics into your community currency project, but it is one of the streams, and we see in our cases that it's very helpful to have this stream and to be aware of this political environment that can be very, very facilitating for your community currency. Another thing is that even though what I was representing on the Turkish case, being dependent on this local political stream, is the perception of the scheme coordinators themselves. Okay, so I think it is a weakness and it's their strength that they are dependent on this local political stream. If they were not, they would probably not be able to be as far as they are now in the operational activities of the Turkish. So it's like the way the framework is tackling it is in a so-called neutral way, like it is reality, and but of course as a community of practitioners it's very helpful, and I think important to be aware that it also has its limitations. At the same time, I personally think that in a state as Belgium, it's with a long tradition in collaboration between business, public sector, and the civil society, it's almost impossible to do great, significant social changes without having these three parties involved. So yeah, but it's up to debate. I mean, you can also think that it's not correct what I'm saying.
In general, like in other countries than Belgium, is it even possible to create such a project without the involvement of public? If you make a complementary currency, at some point the local authorities are still gonna be involved. Like you're still dependent on those outside structures.
Yeah, right.
One more. We have some. Let's say two more. Right? You wanted to ask a question, and then you. It's okay.
So my question is around perception in terms of the problem paradigm that you presented, solutions looking for problems. In one scale, the problem is there, or in one perception, the problem is already there, perhaps waiting to happen. And in the Calgary case, I'm from Calgary, Canada. Calgary is an economic center, 1.2 million people, center of oil sands development. So the problem is there, and the people perhaps don't see it yet, and so therefore are very